Okay, hello everyone. We are about to launch into another Wolfram language design review, part of our incremental language development series, and we've got several topics here. So let's start off with PalindromeQ. How can there be things to talk about this? Extend for the integer case to work in any base. What's the 5 doing? Is that the number of leading zeros and things?
Correct.
Oh, this is integer reverse.
So the discussion last time was that it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about palindromes sometimes unless you specify that third argument. But how do we actually do we want to do that, and how do we do that for palindrome?
We have to have a base. I mean, but palindromes for a biosequence. Boy, this is complicated. I mean, it's just not that complicated a piece of code to say, you know, integer reverse equals whatever. I kind of feel like this is a not particularly good idea. I think it's going to get more complicated inside PalindromeQ than it is. You know, we're going to end up with some elaborate design that's going to say, if you're a bacterium that has, you know, this kind of sequence with this complementation thing, then do this, and it's just going to be a mess. I say we don't do this. Comments from other people about this?
Yeah, I think this is the same conclusion we arrived at the previous time we discussed that. Because given that it's a function that works both on integers and strings and other things, it's difficult to design only for integers.
Right. But does palindrome works for decimal integers, is that right?
Yes.
And if I give it in binary, it's tough luck. If I want it in binary, it's tough luck.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that's just frigging life. I mean, it's just not hard to say integer reverse equals, and I don't remember a single time I've needed that. Well, actually, that's not true. I can remember a few. But, you know, let's not worry about this. I mean, you know, in the function repository, we can have an integer PalindromeQ. Perhaps we already have one that does the totally obvious thing with integer reverse.
Right. Having separate functions would allow the possibility of being more specific in each case.
All right. Anything else here? I think we should just close this.
All right, that works.
Let's come to Brett's low-hanging stuff. Brett, one thing, Brett is here, right? Brett is here. Yeah, right. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
That's not very low-hanging, but is really important, is the stupid graphics row, graphics grid thing.
Yes.
Have you solved that? Do I need to push it further?
I see paths on at least part of it. Or I see paths on
most of it.
Why
did it get unbelievably slow in the most recent version? That's what we need to solve.
So
it really is really bad. It should never have been allowed to happen. It's bad.
I mean, I think there's two things going on.
Okay.
One is, you know, a few versions ago, like I think around V12, it got slower because we're trying to do better at the layout. And so we're spending time doing actual measurements of things. And so that slowed down.
Listen, look. This is kind of, there's a bit more urgency here, okay? This needs to actually be solved. If you need me to go try and solve it, we'll do one of those meetings. But I don't want to hear that it's, you know, some kind of long-term 5-year plan.
No, it's not a long-term 5-year plan. I mean, I responded to, your email yesterday, and for 13.2, we should get some speed up.
We need to
as
not
much
have
as we
something
want,
that could take a
perhaps not,
minute.
but it will make progress.
No, we need to have something where it is not possible for it to take a minute to, to make a bunch of graphics into a row. It just cannot work that way. It cannot happen that way. So why don't we get one of these, bug investigation meetings scheduled, and I'll look at it.
Right. I mean, and so that's
Okay.
the part that I
You
was going to
haven't
say
solved it.
is that, if you'll let me talk for a moment,
Okay, go ahead.
is, so you sent, one of these cases where it was like taking a minute, for you or something. And our node and I both looked at it, and, we were getting results in a few seconds. And so it's one of those things where, somehow
There's a
your
gremlin.
system gets into
There's a
a weird
gremlin.
state. And
How fascinating. Well, then debug it with Roger. Okay.
okay.
I don't believe in those things. It's like the famous thing that happened with Wolfram Alpha, where people tried to convince me it was my network for like 7
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, I'm not
About
allowed to
the
bring that
network
up.
thing forever. Brett, this is a speed issue with graphics Bro
Yes.
or grid
Yeah.
and possibly intermittent.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if you get a
Right.
chance, maybe send it to me. Particularly if you can make it less intermittent.
Well, right, but I mean, my point is, if it really is intermittent, which is totally weird, right? We got to track that down.
Yes. And it's, I mean, there's been a class of these things over the years where, especially with your long running sessions that,
Yeah.
some state builds up and then, some aspect of it,
Usually
who knows what happens.
it's a communications issue, I think. Front end mathlink kernel.
Yeah, I understand.
Where something that a very low probability event happens eventually. And we've actually found and fixed some of these
Okay, but
over the
this
years.
this is happening repeatedly. Okay, let's not derail this.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. First item here. Do we have Tim here?
I don't think we do.
My God. Okay, an ISO set of icons. Are these in Unicode?
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Why do they
No.
have little numbers underneath them if they're not in Unicode?
Do you think those numbers represent Unicode points?
Oh, wait.
ISO.
Okay, I couldn't read them at first. Now I can read them. You're right. It's just formatted exactly like a Unicode table.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it is. Yes.
My gosh. And you have to buy it for 30 Swiss francs? This is very confusing. Okay. Well, I don't think these are particularly relevant. I don't think we need a rotary compressor icon.
Or your front windshield wiper, or
this one here. What's that guy?
it looks like an owl that's frowning or something.
Are they sorry, but a bit up and to the left in that table, are those like the laundry direction icons? Like
These ones? No.
yeah, those look to me like oh no, right? I mean they're the same general shape, but they're not actually.
They have the like windshield wiper icons.
Yeah, they do. But what is a scray? I don't know. It's something in the text.
Woohoo! We found a word Steven doesn't know.
Well, let's see if the system knows it.
Well, I think this looks like a very essential set of icons here.
No, I think it's from the industrial, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The unknown word. Okay. Great. All right. I don't think this is the relevant thing. However,
I mean, I think, if people do have, more common things that they do want added, like things that come up in user interfaces, like hamburger menus and, whatever, or something.
No, but I think the whole point of icon data. Okay. The idea with icon data was to have these parameterized icons.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Which I think are pretty interesting. I think that icon data, look, okay, we got several different things going on here. One is we know there are certain icons that we want to put on maps, we want to have in user interfaces, etc. Right? So, I mean, let's list some of the places where we know we need this stuff. Okay, so we need maps, we need user interfaces, we might need plot markers are slightly related to this.
I mean, that comes back to the maps, sort of. I mean,
yes, it does. Except that maps, we want something that indicates, a waterfall or something. There's probably a thing like that. Now, where else? What other kinds of things have we run into here where we need icons? We need them for, yes, for. I mean, we also have here. We've got sort of indicators like temperature gauges and moon phases and so on. Right? Where are we going to put a designed moon phase? Okay, what are some other domains in the world where this kind of thing comes up? I know we've had a meeting about this before. We should try and find that material.
Right. I mean, the other, place where this, potentially comes up is, I mean, further down in the low-hanging list there, which is, the pictograph type stuff.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'm just looking at icons and I'm seeing Shiba Inu dog icons. Okay. That's kind of, by the time we're at that level, I don't know what.
Right. I mean, and the other thing is that, icons nowadays have overlap with emoji and Unicode that we, didn't have support for previously.
Right. Versus emoji / Unicode. Right. So I mean, there are essentially parameterization-less icons where I don't know why it isn't just coming from Unicode, unless we don't like the design from Unicode or something. We don't like the font. So that's a question. I mean, for maps, for example, is there a Unicode area that just is the appropriate thing for that?
I don't think so.
It's kind of odd, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, the fact that, like, the icon for a tent for, to represent a campsite. I mean, there are things that probably look kind of like it, as some sort of
which raises the
shape.
question of should we be putting this into icon data, or should it be some kind of font where we have something like \bracket tent icon? Jose, other people. I assume Jeremy Davis isn't in this meeting. I can't see why he would be. This is his kind of thing.
I can see if Jeremy can join.
Yeah, why don't you see?
In the vector maps, we use our own collection of icons that is in the style. So there are little images that go into there.
Right. Are they accessible from icon data?
No, I don't think so.
And what are they? If I just want one, if I want to say in text, turn right at the blip sign, where blip is a tent, how would I do that?
I mean, so the existing icons, the parameterless ones, live in the icon entity type. Which, I mean, searching those is.
So if I say here, entity list of icon. Okay. So how do I actually get the icons here?
Pick one of those and grab the image property.
Oh, here, why don't I just map? Why don't I just say entity value? Let's hope this is cached. Why is it, why, I mean, is it because they're big? Do you have any idea why this is slow?
Yeah, there's some intelligent sizing going on there. Is why it was doing it in smaller batches.
Okay, so what are some of these things?
So the category is roughly, skimming through what you had there. We have the yoga poses. We have things that are sort of map related, like those airplanes and, airport parking in the second row there. We have Olympic events.
What's that guy?
Which one?
Fish. An aquarium?
I don't think so. I think
Pet
aquariums.
store?
No, it wouldn't be pet store. It could be aquarium actually.
Okay, and what's that connector doing?
Right, and that's one of the other categories, which are basically electrical connector type symbols. So USB
let's do the
and
following. Let's just do,
VGA and
do we just want to say
do entity class of icon?
okay, but yeah, okay, all right.
Or entity class list.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the geographic ones are split into some subcategories. Transportation and service and
Yeah, I mean, this wouldn't have been my, if I were like, what icons exist ontologically in the world, it wouldn't necessarily, including the icons list of icons, wouldn't necessarily pick this along with yoga poses and know. I mean, this is a pretty weird list, but then
it is. I mean, that's what you just did, basically.
Oh, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you do like dining icons, or then it's a smaller set of things.
Why do we? Okay, dining icons exist because why? Because we put them on maps or what?
Yes.
Hey, Jeremy, we're talking about icons and icon data.
Okay.
And this incredibly weird collection of, I mean, these are nice icons. They're well
they're
drawn.
weird map icons meant to be seen very small. But they were mostly, things like them existed. We just redrew them.
Right. We got a nice consistent set here.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what is our general, but these are not parameterized. These are just pure, it's a thing. I can't even imagine what that one is. And, if we were to look curation wise, just for, a list of icons out there in the world, what, I mean, I'm just looking on the web for, random, lists of icons. Like here's a random list of icons I just found on the web. But I mean, why? What are these for? I mean, what the heck are these, for example? What's this? Question is, what are the use cases for these icons? Because I mean,
the ones you just pointed out look like the new Windows 11 tiling. Yeah, like those are tiling icons for Windows 11, it looks like.
Oh, okay. Okay, but I mean, icons as we use them, we often custom design icons for, for user interface. But what are our uses? Let's list that. Our uses, okay, for icons. Labeling maps, indicators and gauges a little bit for user interfaces, constructing user interfaces, I don't know to what extent we're using them for visualization, and that's where pictograms also comes in.
Right. I was going to say, constructing user interfaces, we don't have any of those things, like easily accessible from the system. Right.
Right, and arguably we should.
Like you don't have the toolbar on right now, but none of those icons, I think, exist anywhere. I mean, obviously they exist
How
in
do
the
I switch
system.
the toolbar on?
Preferences?
No, you can't.
I'm not sure why it isn't on right now.
Well, because I switched it off. But
Aha.
why? Surely it should be from the window menu.
Oh, yes. Toolbar submenu, fourth item down from the top. Default.
Okay. So you're saying those very icons, we don't have them in a font, we don't have them anywhere.
I mean, there's some resource that is, with the magic incantation you could get.
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, my question is this. Why do we not take our, tent icon or something and just make it a character? Particularly in the modern world of emojis. Can anybody answer that? I mean, what
benefit
other
would it have?
What's that?
What benefit would it have if it's technically a character?
Well, we can put it in text then. I mean, let's say the aquarium. What other properties does it have? Okay, so the only property it has is its image and its name.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but would you ever want to put it in text?
For some of them, yes. And I mean, when I admit, okay, this one, not really. I can't imagine it. I mean, I could imagine it in some tabular data. I can certainly imagine it. Okay, the question is, what is this thing? Okay, so let's say that I have a table. Okay, I make a table of, now how do I enter the aquarium? So I would say icon of aquarium. No, I would say control equals aquarium icon. Does that work? Okay.
So probably a aquarium of image, right?
Right. Which is what I'm going to want all the time. I don't really want just making a list of the aquarium icons is not very interesting. It's a bit fishy here. I mean, why is it that size? Why, for example, why did it not get smaller? How did it pick the size? Is that an image? Yes.
That is an image, yes.
Okay, so if I say input form of that.
Actually, is it an image? No, it's a graphic. So why did it not get? It must have a fixed
No,
size.
it probably did get resized, but it didn't have the thing, the fish was fed too much and expanded to fill its tank, so to speak. As in, if I just were to take arbitrary graphics here, they would probably be this size. That's probably the size for
right.
graphics.
Yes, that's the
And so this thing got was as big as it could be, so to speak. All right, so this thing really is a piece of graphics. So for example, that means that I could, in principle, well, I can't, in fact, but so for example, here's a thing that I might want to do. I might want to say, take this, and let's say I say, something like first of the fish, and then I'm going to say something like graphics of light blue. Oops. Which otherwise is not clear how I would do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it was a font character, I do know how to do that with style.
Right.
And I mean, in maps and things, in different styles and maps, don't we need to recolor the icons?
And we do.
Well, how do we do it?
List, like GeoListplot, with icons will set the base style, I think, for the
But why does
graphic.
the base style? Oh, okay. So it's done through base style. But I mean, it would be much better if we could just say, style of this thing. I mean, which if it was a character, we could do. I'm not necessarily saying it's right for it to be a character, because the disadvantage of it being a character is then the sizing. I mean, right now, I can make, I can resize the fish like that, which I clearly couldn't do if it was a character.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for an emoji, we don't have named. Can you get to emoji from names?
Not through like long name characters generally.
Why? I mean, wouldn't it be? How do I get to an emoji? By the way, our special characters palette does not have emoji on it, which is a shame. And it probably should have, right now that we can do them.
Well, generally it only has
As name
characters
things.
with long names. And
we should consider generalizing this. I mean, I understand that I mean, because we built this, 20 years ago or something now, more than that.
I mean, it's been updated. It's not like
Right. I mean, the
static
downside with
any-
that is that the set of emoji or Unicode characters that is available on your system
Maybe
depends on your OS version and not on your.
All right. So basically, you're saying use your OS mechanism for entering these things.
Mm-hmm. John Mac is like, control command space.
Right. Or if you have a very recent Mac, right, you just hit the FN key and it brings up an emoji chooser.
I tried that. It didn't work. Okay. All right. So this is.
And if you scroll down, like to bring the top row.
If I use this alligator, will it now remember crocodile, whatever? Will it now show me that crocodile? Is that crocodile now a favorite of mine? Oh yes, it is.
And you see there's a search field at the top there.
I see. Okay. All right. So then, okay, but now I'm having a hard time distinguishing. So if I say here, style the crocodile,
colors will have no effect on that.
No, I understand that. But I mean, if we style the crocodile at 100, okay, then it's a nice vector crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that if I color the crocodile, it'll just ignore the colors.
Yep.
Right. Do I have any way to color the crocodile? I mean, I suppose I'd have to take this and
Image
have to say rasterize the crocodile.
Right.
And then I could say blend or something.
Right. I mean, you could try. I mean, I don't know that it would have any effect on the on a crocodile, right? But you could try adding the skin tone modifiers to see if they affect the crocodile.
Oh no. It's not like elephants. They don't tell me it goes from African to Indian elephant if you add a modifier. Okay.
As long as it can tell apart an African or European swallow.
Right. Okay, but in any case, so what's the point here? So we've got several mechanisms. We've got the emoji mechanism, we've got the icon data graphics mechanism. And is there any other mechanism? What about the plot markers? What are they? Are plot markers icons? Are they in icon data?
They are not. So the sequence used by list plot or whatever, when you say plot markers goes to automatic, is just a list. It's an internal list that it goes through. It's not exposed.
That's bad.
In any way.
That should be in icon data at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I say plot markers are automatic here. Oh boy. Well, hard to tell what's going on, isn't it? If I do this, is that going to... Well, whatever.
It's arguably worse because
Yeah, okay.
the
But
line
the
fills
first
in
point that we're
the-
noticing in terms of consistency is these plot markers better be in, should be in icon data.
Mhm.
I would assume. I mean, the point is, okay, so let's understand how we anchor these things. So the point is that icon data primarily is a name-based story. Everything has a name. It's got, big toe pose or whatever it is. It's a named thing. Whereas these plot markers might not have a name. I mean, it might be a put-up job to give them a name, just like it often is in Unicode.
Mhm.
Left circle, descending, whatever it is.
Right.
But okay, so of any these iconistic things, I could almost say iconic things. They have an appearance, they have a name. Look, actually, let's list off what they actually have. In a more general, okay, properties. Okay, they have a name. They have a graphics appearance. They potentially have a font appearance. And they also might have an image appearance, so to speak.
Mhm.
Like, for example, for flags, flags are a good example because flags exist in, for us, if we say, let's say, I don't know, what has a fancy flag? Monaco flag. I'm going to guess that has a coat of arms or something. Okay, so what we have here, that
That's
one,
boring.
oh, blast. Well, give me one that's more interesting. Something with what has a coat of arms or something like that on it.
Or it doesn't.
Try
El
Mexico.
Salvador as a seal. Oh yeah, that's Mexico is good.
Okay, that was quite slow. Okay, but that is a vector eagle. Whereas we can also say Mexico flag image. Does that?
It's the same one.
That's bad. That's bad. That's a linguistic that should surely work. Okay, so then we got flag image. Okay, and that will be a much lower res eagle. There we go. And meanwhile, we've also got, how the heck do I get this? How do I get the Mexican emoji, Mexican flag emoji? I guess I do this and I search for Mexico and I pick the flag there along with the burrito, whatever that is. Wait a minute, why did that beep? Why did that beep at me?
I don't know. If you try, you can try to follow. If you have wires activated, you can try the emoji palette wires function.
Okay.
No, I think
Whoa. It's not working. It's not working.
Out of curiosity, what happens if you try and type that into another window and then copy it into the notebook?
You mean just some other random application?
Yeah, I just want to see if it's a problem with the emoji or if it's just a problem with that input mechanism.
Yeah, I understand. Well, let's try and put it in a web browser. Input, that's probably a silly place to put it. Let's put it into, gosh, what applications do I have? I can try putting it into mail. See what happens if I try that. Okay, so I've got this, Command, Shift, whatever. Press the Mexican flag. Well, one Mexican flag appeared in email. Okay, let's copy
Can you paste it? Yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, we've got a baguette here. Okay, so the issue there is control. Let's just see what happens if I try and if I do this and I put the cat icon in there. Oh, that's really weird. The cat works.
The Mexican flag, right? The Mexican flag is two characters. I wonder if that's somehow related. assuming there really is a problem with Mexican flag.
Well, I think there is really a problem. I mean, if I try it again, let's just try. Let's try my favorite RAM here. Yeah, the RAM has no problem.
Now that can you put
Mexican
the
flag
flag
works
after the
fine for
RAM
me.
now?
Mexican flag works fine for me. Pasting into.
It just beeps. Let's see what
No,
happens.
I mean if your insertion point is after the RAM,
Oh, okay. Let's try that.
I'm wondering if there's some issue
Trying to
with
do an
creating a new
evaluation without having
cell.
anything selected. So there's also a bug. Okay, let's try this. That just didn't work at all. That I did command. What the heck? I put a Mexican flag in there and it evaluated the RAM. There's a bug here. And it might be because it's a double code point or something.
Or your machine's haunted.
Possibly that. Okay, so my point here is the Mexican flag comes in 3 variants, right? It's a graphic, it's an image, and it's a font. It's an emoji font character. Now, I would claim that that same thing, in a sense, what we're dealing with here is how to think about this. What we've got is named iconography, typically, or possibly iconography picked from a palette. How should we think about this? But it feels like it what we really need is that the icon entity could have image, it could have graphics, it could have character, all 3 attributes, all 3 properties rather. Am I missing something here?
We could have potentially up to that. I mean, some of them might be missing or something.
Sure. Yeah. If there's no emoji, if it's an anteater, there might not be an emoji for an anteater.
Right.
Because we might not have an icon for an anteater either. But I mean, essentially, what we're talking about here is these icon things are drawn. There's a fairly clear distinction between an image of an anteater and an anteater icon. Do we think that's true?
So by image of an anteater, you mean like a photo of an anteater?
Yeah, I mean what I
Yes.
get if I say, image of an anteater.
Right.
There it is. What the heck is that? Wait a minute.
That's the leg.
Oh, that's the leg of the anteater. Sorry. I thought it was like a panda that the anteater was friends with or something. Never mind. Okay.
I mean, it does look like that, but it's probably one of
Okay,
those.
never mind. Let's assume it's the leg of the anteater. But we can clearly imagine an anteater icon, which is very different from the anteater photograph.
Mm-hmm.
You had
So-
an icon, you could even imagine putting it on the entity, blob.
That's a good
It might
point.
be a little funky.
That's a good point. I mean, when we have icons for things, now it's interesting. Okay, so let's take a corner case of iconography. Okay, we've got, for example, the symbol for the planet Mars. Okay, which is not. I mean, that's sort of an icon for Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if we go to Unicode and we look up icons in Unicode, does it have a whole section that
I'm sure that symbol is in Unicode.
Oh yeah, no, it certainly is. It's just where we're getting it from. How can this be? I'm so confused here. I mean, I'm just looking at some random site with a I mean, because of course Unicode now that there's emoji, it's no longer as standardized or something. I mean, because different people. Okay, so I mean, this is just a bunch of random stuff here. See, I mean, one of the things as a practical matter, when we make icons, yeah, okay, chess pieces. Do we have icons?
Yes, have for a long time. Well, I mean,
Icons,
we've
are
had
they
symbol, I
characters?
mean, characters for chess pieces for a
Characters.
long time.
So if I say bishop or something,
You have to say like black.
oh, so we do. I didn't know that. Okay.
Because then there's the white version as well.
Yeah, I understand that. But so that's another great example of a character that is an icon. Right?
Mhm.
Whereas we don't have this as a piece of graphics. We could, but the only way you get
Well,
those
we
graphics,
actually will in 13.2
why?
because of the chess tools thing that's being worked on.
Oh, okay. What is
They're
that?
adding graphics versions?
They've gotten some graphical versions because when you overlay them on an actual chessboard, you need something with.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. You're saying, right. So that's a great reason to have, okay. So then, if you want to put them, if you want to place these things, well, if you have an inset, okay, if you want to place these things in graphics, you need at least an image version, if not a graphics version. Right?
I mean, text version will work.
No, but it won't resize properly.
I mean, depends on what your intention is.
It would in an inset, wouldn't it?
No, I don't
I mean,
think
it won't resize by default.
Oh,
in an
okay.
it won't,
inset.
because you'd have to give it a restyle. You'd have to restyle it. I mean, if I do this, if I say, graphics of table of inset of the chess piece.
How do word clouds work then? It doesn't seem right. Those are insets
They
of text.
it's
I-
text with the font size set to scaled,
Ah,
I
okay.
believe.
Which I think you can do with inset too.
So what would I do? I would say, right here,
Scaled of-
I just say random real 10.2 or something here. And then, okay, so generically there are my, whatever those things were. Is that a queen?
Queens, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now if I say in here, style of this thing, and then what do I say? Font size. What do I say here?
Font size goes to scaled of 0.05.
You might need to put it in oh, never mind.
Okay.
But now try rescaling that graphic.
Yeah, that will work. If I rescale this graphic, those guys will all stay at an absolute size.
Yep.
But if this thing was, I mean, isn't there a thing that takes this and makes glyphs out of it? What was that? Is that a WFR thing that makes a glyph out of a font character? We do have a way to do that, right? Because we can turn this font
We do have a way to do that, and I don't remember what it is right now.
Actually, there's a thing that's called image graphics, right? But it isn't image. This isn't image graphics that we want. This is, I mean, if I take that and I give it, I think I'd have to rasterize that. Okay.
There was a way to do it with export to PDF and re-import with a certain
That's
option.
right. Yeah, right. This is image mesh, but this isn't. Yeah, right. There was a crazy way with the PDF import.
I think there's an image measure, kind of image binarized, not, yeah, there's a way to do it this way too.
It's
If you
okay.
just want the text as a mesh, there's a thing with boundary discretized graphics.
Oh, that's too weird. Anyway, but look, basically the point here is we've got these different modalities for getting what is essentially an icon graphic. And what do we think that the right way to do this is? Is the right thing to have a standardized bin that we throw all these things into, where we have, an icon for Mexican flag, an icon for anteater if we ever drew one, that basically every time we draw an icon, including all the ones that we draw for our internal purposes, that we give it a name and throw it in the icon entity store with properties that are these different things? Would that be a sensible way to do it? And then, then we can palletize, so to speak, a different meaning of palletize, these things so that you can pick them like this. Does that make sense to people? I mean, and that way what we would do is we would take, all these different sources of icons, which means the plot markers, the internal interface icons, etc. And and centralize them all inside icon entity store, the icon entity store. Is that sensible? Now, what that doesn't get for us is the parameterized icons. Things like those wind maps and so on.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think those have to live in icon data.
Well, no doubt, but I mean, we have to think about those more carefully. But
Mm-hmm.
Is there an obvious distinction between? I think there is a pretty obvious distinction between the parameterized and the non-parameterized ones.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty obvious, at least. And now the question is, should we be able to access? Let's say we have a named thing in icon data, in the icon entity store. Mm-hmm. Should we also make that be a thing which is a character that you can access with \bracket? Or is that crazy? Probably that's crazy. That's crazy because then we have to have a Unicode code point for it.
Right, and it has to live in the private space potentially, and it just gets messy.
All right, so comments from people, from Jose, for example, in terms of okay, so I mean, right now we have an icon entity store, but right now it only contains the vector graphics. Right? Not even if there was a Unicode character, it is not in there. Does that make sense? So that's a piece of curation to match those up. Jose, does that make sense to you?
Yes. So for us, there are two main ways we would use icons. One is in GeoMarker in general, the second argument of GeoMarker. So we can place anything we want anywhere. That's very useful through icon data. The other ones are the icons used in the vector maps. Those are very specific, and those are determined by the style. So every time that the style of the vector label map is downloaded, which we do once per week, it comes with its own icons, and it will use only those icons.
Okay, so wait a minute. So you're describing yet a different issue. You're describing the thing. You're describing the issue of maybe we want the equivalent of different fonts for different stylings of a single icon. See what I'm saying? Because in other words, right? I mean, you're saying if I look at our icons down wherever it is, like the fish icon here, there could be multiple, just like, there are multiple ways to render the character G or something. There could be multiple different ways to render the fish in different, essentially, icon font families.
Well, I mean, via GeoMarker, we can use whatever icon we want. And GeoMarker doesn't have the capability of restyling. For example, if that's black, GeoMarker cannot change it to red. It will go as it is.
But no.
What's that?
GeoMarker, if you set GeoMarker within GeoListPlot, it will get styled.
if you put something in the second argument. I mean, if the default geomarker gets styled, but I'm referring to using
No.
an
Gets
icon.
a
as the second.
style. Wait a second.
Okay, Stephen, do geo list plot of random geo position, comma of 10 geomarker goes to the goldfish.
Okay. Geolist plot.
Oh, sorry. Never mind, Jose. I was getting geomarker and plot markers mixed up.
Oh,
Plot
I see.
marker is the option. Geomarker is the thingy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm referring to geomarker.
Yeah.
So if I say plot markers and then the fish, is it going to?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
What
what's
went
that
wrong
big
there?
pink thing?
What's that?
What's the pink?
What's the pink?
There's a multi-transform getting screwed up somehow.
Well, I mean, I think it might be because the fish is cut off by. Oh, this is not good.
Well, it did restyle the fish. but
It
probably
did
not
restyle the
really,
fish.
It restarted the fish, but it also rearranged the world as well.
What do you mean?
that's because
Well, I
you
mean,
ran
that's
random
dependent on
position,
the
got a different.
geo
You have random
positions.
positions.
I know. So okay, so those are the random positions. Now, why is the fish not? It's very fishy. What's going on?
Yeah. That I'll look at.
I mean, I'm not totally surprised because that fish it's a complete piece of graphics, which is well and good. But now I'm curious if I were to put a wherever I had it, if I were to put a ram in there as a character.
It's probably going to run into the same issue.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's just a smaller pink box. And a small RAM in the top left corner.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this needs to be fixed. What does work here?
Can you try putting it in a list? I'm wondering if it's. I mean, I wouldn't expect, given how it's behaving, I don't think that will make a difference, but. Yeah, I didn't think.
No,
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's come back to what. All right, so there's the question of different renderings of these things. So let's say we've got an icon as the anchor name, and then we've got, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know precisely how geographics works, right? But in a lot of these things, right, the icon isn't actually there, right? We essentially have a pointer to icon, which is, a front-end resource. And so then when we want to update our styles, we just update the front-end resource and all the objects get the new version of the icon. So, there's another question of, would this thing return the pointer to icon? And
yeah, okay, but that's a separate issue. That's another kind of thing, which is a indirect front-end resource, asset resource. That's another type of thing. I mean, that's an orthogonal issue. That is, it could be an image that is a front-end asset, or it could be a graphic that's a front-end asset, or it could be an image that isn't a front-end asset and it's just inlined. Right? Is it a pointer or is it inlined?
Right.
That's what you're asking. Okay, so look, what I think is that we should review all these sources and we should plan to basically put everything into the icon entity store. That's what I think. And try to get these different, gradually build up these different things there. Now, and we should get some kind of palletization of the icon. It's a different case. Okay, this is reminiscent of the color repository. Okay, question.
Except messier, perhaps.
Well, okay, here's a question.
I mean, larger, perhaps.
Could this be a repository? Is that a better solution? where one can in principle just deploy new things and name them in some way. In other words, could it be the case that icon data, actually this is an interesting idea, that icon data becomes like NetModel, something that has a repository as its backing? Because otherwise, one of the issues is going to be, how do we document icon data? Right? It's got random things like dining places and so on, whatever. It's going to be a very weird piece of documentation. So, I mean, right now we're planning a color palette repository, which hopefully is in fairly advanced stages of development. I think we also think that we want to have a plot themes repository, and we're going to have a style sheet repository. I think we also want a plot themes repository. And maybe we just want an icon repository. Comments, Jeremy, anybody else here?
So it makes sense from a documentation exposure point of view, but worries me that it implies some giant effort to fill it out, whatever that means.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think we just put whatever we put in it.
Yeah.
And that's the advantage of a repository. I mean, I'm just concerned that
Well, I mean, I think my concern with a repository is that, there's, I mean, like when you were doing your searches earlier, everybody's created, their sets of icons for things, and there's going to be
whose sets of icons for what? You mean on the searches on the web or searches elsewhere?
Yes, like the websites that you were where you were searching for icons, and you had the dog themed ones or whatever, right?
Yes.
So sort of.
Okay, let's discuss.
I imagine for a given name, there's 20 people's interpretations of what that looks like.
I just put in a link that's a good kind of representation of the coverage. So like 5 million, I think.
Do they have an API? Yeah, they have an API.
They do. So technically, these are what, Creative Commons with attribution, and I think you get to pay to get beyond attribution.
Okay.
There might be some partnership here, but this is great coverage. I mean, you type in something, you'll expect to find it. Whereas our repo, I don't think you should expect to find anything.
Yes, on the other hand, right. On the other hand, yeah, I mean, this is the other problem that we have gone and, had people actually draw icons that are consistently styled. Like that guy wouldn't be consistent with our style.
Right.
And I mean, in practice, Jeremy, when we need icons, how much of the time, I mean, we end up redrawing them, don't we? Essentially all the time. We can never reuse an icon.
Yeah, so, we always redraw them.
Why? Because of the styling issue.
Yeah, typically, yeah. And we just don't borrow from other people either,
Yeah, right. I understand. But I mean, even if it was a free icon, it would not work in our style.
Probably not. Yeah. I mean, so across the domain, yeah, everything's consistent. Like the yoga is self-consistent. I don't know if it's consistent with everything else we do.
It looked fairly consistent.
Yeah.
Right. So this is icons here.
But it's it's a great site. It's useful, and the main thing is you type something, you're going to find it. And that's how it's useful. Whereas I worry about a repo that's sparse.
Wow.
I'm not sure what the expectation is going to be.
Well, I think that the point is that it's going to be, look, it's like the neural net repository. You use it because there's a workflow that uses it, so to speak. That is.
The thing with the neural net repository is the value that adds the fact that if you get your neural network from somewhere else, it's it's not in a consistent format or anything. But here it's just I'm sure that these services can provide these icons in a format that everyone can use.
Okay, so let's take that. Let's take this wolf here. I see. So you get some customize this icon.
I don't know who uses that. That's not something a serious designer would need. That's more of a consumer. The colorization and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was gonna ask if they're always vectors.
The source is vector. I think you can get that bitmap in other formats, but yeah, it's SVG for all this stuff.
So why did
Probably
that?
you should press the get this icon button.
Yeah, then you get a paywall, right? It's like they don't
Yeah,
want you
right,
to just
okay.
take everything.
Right.
I think technically it's free, but again, there's a licensing issue with all the free stuff.
Right. So I mean, if I say, let's try something more bizarre. Let's try tungsten. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's not clear these are useful, but let's try something like well, I don't know whether this is maybe liberally metaverse icon.
Is that a yoga pose in the beginning of the second row?
I like the Doctor Strangelove rocket.
Where oh.
The next one over. Yeah, that's nice.
What other thing could we try here? We could try, well, let's try Anteater. I bet they'll have something for that. Yeah, but I mean, okay, these are amusing, but as you say, we'd never use these.
Well, what would you use? I mean, I don't know. Some of those, like the ones on the second row, like the.
Well, I think we'd
look
redraw it because
plausible.
we have to make the Anteater fit in with our, I mean, this doesn't fit with a crocodile emoji. It doesn't fit with our.
But if it's just consumer, somebody who uses our product that wants an icon, then this is all perfectly acceptable. They'll have some sense of what they want, and there's different styles.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And okay,
And
but
we're
I mean,
never going to have an anteater icon.
what's that?
I mean, who knows? We may yet, have somebody draw, all the animals for us.
I can't imagine it. I mean, it just seems, I mean,
You're going to be drawing like C. elegans or something.
right. But the question is, okay, why do people use icons? The answer is they use them when there are lots of something and they want to they have a big table, they have a big, they have something where they are trying to pack, they're trying to pack that in. Okay, a couple of uses. Okay, uses of icons is, seems to me there's, placing something with information, e.g. on a map, e.g. map or plot. Another thing is, indicating the meaning of a word, indicating or highlighting a word, indicating meaning or highlighting a word. That's like our case where, that's what we do often in user interfaces. If that makes sense, right? Where we show an icon along with a word. Another case would be in tabular data, economizing on space in tabular data. What other uses? I mean, road signs, but that's not our use case. This is the way to the Anteater enclosure. What other uses? Okay, give me some use cases, like for the Anteater icons. Where would people use the Anteater icon? I love the way we have such a talented group and such silence.
If we were having a company picnic and we had little zoo displays, it would be an icon on a map to show where that particular animal was located.
Yes.
Right. So for the zoo designers, this is a useful thing to have.
I was gonna say, so if we gave each department
I was thinking the
an
front end
animal
den.
mascot.
I was just thinking the department members, maybe. The front end den.
What
Right.
about
Okay.
new kernel stand? Does it get its own special icon?
Damn straight.
That one there. Okay, but in any case, seriously, okay, so I wonder whether this thing has most popular icons. I wonder whether they have any kind of information about that. if we I mean, I wonder what happens if I type in nematode. So sad.
If it was Wolfram Alpha, it would ask, "Did you mean a toad?"
No. That's not that. This is getting rid of nematodes, I assume. It's not the
Yes.
use.
They
Maybe
get such a bad
C.
rap.
Right. So the people who like them call them C. elegans.
Right. That's pretty lame. Okay, so I mean, but I don't know what we would use that for. I mean, what are some things that we've had to draw icons for? Itai, what are some things we've had to draw icons for in summary blobs? I mean, if I say sparse array,
I mean,
That
we
has
don't we don't draw icons. I mean,
No, I
for the
mean we
most
do,
part.
Itai.
I mean,
you know,
but okay, fine. I mean,
verification test has a check mark, for example.
right.
yeah, but okay, we have an icon for astro position, which I don't like very much, which is a telescope.
Right, but the ones I create, well, I guess there are a couple of exceptions like link object, which have icons, but I mean they're typically very specialized. Right, but like sparse array, right? I mean that's an actual visualization of the data.
Yes, right, which is useful.
Well,
Okay,
unless it's really big, in which case, or too high dimensional, in which case it shows kind of an icon-y thing.
Well, it's the visualization, right? But that the way that icon-y thing was created was by doing the exact same thing to, you know, a particular data set and removing the color.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try typing a Boolean here. It's gonna
Right. I mean, we have other like schematics, like, you know, region member, region nearest
Yeah, I guess
function. You know,
that's true.
these all have schematics, but they're not icons you'd ever find here.
Yeah, I think verification
nice
is the
site.
only one that I think people, you know, anybody who's not a Wolfram language programmer would recognize as an icon.
right. I mean, the other place that icons get used heavily is in things like System Modeler,
Oh, that's a good point. Yes,
where you
okay.
have, you know,
That's a good
standard
point.
shapes that
okay,
represent.
wait, hold on. So that's a use of icons. So that's a what is that? That's like circuit diagrams, etc.
Exactly.
Circuit diagrams, flow charts, basically, you know, this is, what is the general name for this other than visual programming? I mean, what is the general name for, yeah, I mean, if we say, actually, here's an interesting one. What is the icon for a photon? That's pretty bad. You see, the fact is that there, for the physicists in this, you know, that with that weird arrow there is a Feynman diagram, but the photon part of it is just the squiggly part. Do you know what I'm saying? And yet they don't have an icon here, and that's something that, okay, that is a good example in icon.
What's the first icon in that list?
That's not useful. I mean, a photon is a single squiggly line.
Okay.
Okay, but just I mean, just to be clear, another point here is, you know, we've got parameterized icons. Okay, and one class of those is e.g. wiggly line photons, because that's a type of thing we don't have. Like in the case of icon data, right? We've got let me use this technology here. No, that does the wrong thing. This is the one. In the case of,
I think that's actually a Z particle, not a photon, but
what?
I'm just being contrary. I mean, how can you tell that's a photon and not a Z?
Yeah, okay, fine. It's a gauge boson of some kind. Okay, but in any case, in icon data, so this is the thing we don't have right now. Draw a wiggly line. Do we have any way to do that? Do we have any way to specify that? I'm drawing a line, it's like an arrow. Right? How would I draw a wiggly line? Brett.
Not sure. I mean, you'd probably construct something with parametric plot, or at least.
No, I understand.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I understand how we'd actually do it in this.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is something like a wiggly line from here to there seems to me like a parameterized icon. in much the same way that this is a parameterized icon, which happens to be, I mean, that happens to be a vector, parameterized icon, which is defined by a vector, as opposed to a parameterized icon defined by a scalar here.
And what you would give it like the coordinates?
Yeah, just like you do an arrow.
Okay.
I mean, arrow is an overlay to line. I mean, you might give a line, I suppose. I don't know. Not sure. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
and
also the
arrow,
other thing,
arrow can surround things that are not just line, or am I confused?
no, you're right. Either
So-
like an arrow, or a style specification for e.g. an edge in a graph. Because that's another case you might want it. You might want a wiggly line in a graph, as you would for Feynman diagrams, for example. All right, listen, I think that my conclusion from this is that we should expect to expand the icon entity store. We should spruce it up a bit with these other properties, and we should expect to turn it into a repository. And we should put into it, whenever we create things, we create musical instrument icons for some random reason. We put them in there. We create icons for, I don't know, we need icons for phyla of animals or something. We put those in there, etc. And, we just make it a centralized repository for all icons that we need. And maybe we have user contributed icons, although then we're going to end up with icons not in our style, but just maintaining icons that we ourselves use seems useful, because if somebody wants one of those icons for something, they know it's going to be consistent, etc. And it seems like a useful place for us to put things, because we keep on needing icons for all kinds of random purposes. And I don't even know what happens when we want to recycle an icon that we used in a menu, and we want to recycle it in an itai blob, so to speak. How does that even work? Does just somebody from design just say, here's the, here are the assets for this icon, or what? Jeremy?
Well, so a lot of these itai blobs are visualizations.
Well,
so
I mean,
yeah,
but that's
so
just
Billy
an
does
example.
create vector art that gets passed, and so a lot of stuff will come through us, but a lot of it's like representative visualizations.
Fair
Right,
enough.
like a better example, Jeremy, would be like, I'm making something and I want the same icons that are used in, like, in the tongue. I want the, well, I mean, I guess those are characters technically, but
Well, so we do have a lot of icons in not resource objects, but basically in the front end that are called.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A
lot actually. So the icons used in Wayne, right? There's a lot of icons in the Wayne UI, and I think that's all baked into some resource.
Right, but I mean, we've also got icons, like we have somebody drawing constellations right now.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of random icon art. And I think what we're suggesting here is to just, centralize the icon art, which seems sensible to me.
And by live technically, so would some of this get cached into the front end?
Absolutely. It would get cached. Lots of stuff would get cached, but there would be a repository from which you could get additional assets. I mean, probably, maybe we could use for the kernel, at least we could use the same caching mechanism that we do for every other, repository thing. And we could pre-cache a bunch of stuff, but that's, the really common stuff. Right, I think I have to go, but this was a useful conversation. I think so that's, why don't we think about that possibility? Icon repository.
Should icons only be vector? Or
no, I think what we should do is for every icon, we should try to provide a font version, if there is one, if it maps to something in Unicode, an image, which we can programmatically generate from the vector if we have a vector. And in some cases, sorry, there isn't a vector version.
Yeah.
And you specify that icon name as a plot marker. It will just use the bitmap.
Okay. I have a whole collection that we did for alpha, right? These sketch icons.
Right.
And they could go in there. They're nice, but they're very different than a typical icon.
Right. But I mean, I think even for our own management purposes, having a single icon repository would be useful.
Yeah.
And then again, as I said, we need a mechanism for turning families of icons into palettes, which should be rather straightforward. I mean, it's just a piece of code, basically just says, take this and this and this and put it in a palette. And I think that's the story for the what can we say, the noun without adjective or something, the unvarianted icons. Then there's the problem of parameterized icons, which I think icon data is the only, I mean, it could be done in a repository as well. I mean, then it's like a mini function repository, right? A parameterized icon is a function, basically, that takes in a parameter or some family of parameters and returns a graphic. So it's like a very junior version of plotting. Brett, does that make sense to you?
I think so. I mean, and I think, to some extent, as you say, those could, like what's in icon data right now, conceivably, in a different world, could have been individual functions in the function repository.
Yeah, or it could be an air temperature plot.
Mm-hmm.
Except we don't want that. We want something which is I mean, really what this is, I mean, perhaps it's just another repository. I mean, we have a repository of icons that are static icons, and we have a repository of icon functions or something that is icons that take arguments, which should not be merged with the other icons because they have a lot of different attributes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the least crazy thing, because otherwise what's going to happen here is we're going to put random stuff into icon data. It's going to become undocumentable, etc. Whereas if it's a repository, it's okay that it's got, 50 random things that were developed at different times for different purposes. And so long as it has a consistent look, I think everybody is happy. I need to go to something different. In fact, another live stream here. Great. Okay. Well, we got through one thing. I think this was a useful conversation, and to be continued another time.
Okay.
So, okay. See you guys soon. Bye for now.